Om Namo Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shiva Om, Shiva Hum, Om. Welcome to another satsang with your host, Chuck the Yogi, from the Yogi Cave. It's getting chilly in the Yogi Cave as we get closer and closer to the fall. Let's continue with Pala number 2. Let's see, where was we? 2.8. Dukkha Anushayi Dveshaha. Aversion is that which rests on sorrowful experiences. So whether attachment or aversion, Patanjali is saying that these are elements that are the roots of ignorance, obstacles on the path to achieving enlightenment in yoga. Whether it's Buddhist yoga, Sanatana Dharma yoga, yoga's yoga. We're talking about yoga, and Patanjali's talking about yoga with a capital Y. 2.9 Svarasa Vahi Vidushopi Tata Kruto Biniveshaha. The will to live, flowing along by its own momentum, is rooted thus even in the sages. So that's just to say that that's one of the primordial forces that keep us here in the world. And with the will to live, obviously, that implies also the will to sleep, eat, drink, and reproduce, right? The 4 basics of animal life on the planet. So what he's saying and admitting to is that this is one of the deepest roots that bind us to this construct that we call reality. 2.10 Te prati prasava yaha sukshmaha. These causes of affliction in their subtle form are to be overcome by the process of evolution. So basically what Patanjali is saying is that all of these things, including the will to live, which doesn't mean that once you achieve enlightenment, all of a sudden you want to commit suicide. What it means is that when you do achieve enlightenment, being alive or dead is irrelevant. You're here, you do what you gotta do, and when it's your time to leave, you leave. And that's the end of it. So all he's saying here is that it's the process of involution, the tapasya, the sadhana, process of looking within rather than without. Like Jung says, those that look within awaken, so to speak. So Patanjali is saying the same thing. And it's a process, it's a method, because yoga is all about doing and not believing. 2.11 Dhyana Kayastan Vritaya. Fluctuations of these causes of affliction are to be overcome by meditative absorption. So meditation, dhyana as it's called, is one of the key components of yoga. And it's understood in the West now as mindfulness. But in classical Sanskrit, it's called dhyana. And in Buddha, we called it vipassana. It's all the same thing, just different words explaining the same thing. 2.12 Klesha mulaha karma ashayam drishta adrishta janma vedaniyaha. Causes of affliction are the root of the action deposit, and this may be experienced in seen present births or an unseen future births. So you have the whole wheel of samsara right there, in terms of you have an aversion or you have an attachment to whatever it is that creates a root within your psyche or your soul that can sprout later in life, now, or in the future. So you have different types of karmas, right? Karmas that are unfolding now, karmas that may unfold in the future, and past karmas that have created your present tense. So all these different kinds of karmas are based on that wheel of samsara, action and reaction, aversion, attachment, all this other stuff that keeps us in the hamster wheel of lifetime after lifetime. So this is that all in a nutshell. And 2.13 Satimule tad vipako jatiyayo bogaha. So long as the root exists, there is also fruition from it, birth, life, and enjoyment. So as I was saying before, in order to get out those weeds and to get them out permanently, you have to be able to rip them by the root. It's not enough to prune them, because as long as there's even the smallest piece of root from that weed, eventually the circumstances may appear that allow that root to respawn. So this is what yoga in essence is all about. It's about getting to that root and ripping it out once and for all. So it's pretty radical when you think about that. Most philosophies or religions or whatnot don't go anywhere near this radical a stance as far as like ripping it out from the root. And the Buddha was very much like that. He wanted to rip it out. And Hinayana Buddhism or Theravada Buddhism is very much like that. Mahayana is a little softer. But it's Theravada and Hinayana Buddhism is closer to the root of what Patanjali is talking about here. 2.14 Tehlada Paritapa Palaha Punya Apunya Hetutvat. These three have delight or distress as a result, according to the causes which may be meritorious or demeritorious. So all he's talking about is that when people ask, well, why do some people suffer? Why are some people born unlucky? Etc., etc. And so Patanjali is saying, well, it's because of karma. Karma means, again, to create. From that root, kri, to create. So based on your merits or demerits, on your past likes or dislikes, and how you reacted to these things in the past, you have a fruition that creates your future. So whatever you decide now, or whatever you decided 20 years ago, is what you have now. It's coming to fruition, whatever that is. You wanted to have a family, you wanted to create an empire, you wanted to get a master's, whatever it is, there's a fruition, there is a flowering of that karma, right? So this is what he's talking about. He's getting into the DNA of why these things happen. Why is it that things happen the way they do? 2.15 will be done for now. Parinama tapa samskara dukhair una vritti viroda cha dukham eva sarvam vivekinaha. Because of the sorrow and the continual transformation of the world ground, and the anguish and the subliminal activators, and on account of the conflict between the movements of the primary constituents, which is sattva, tamas, raya, 3. Again, this is all based on the Samkhya philosophy. To the discerner, all is but sorrow, which is one of the first truths that the Buddha talked about, of his 4 truths. Life is sorrowful. Why? Because when you're in love, you may fall out of love. When you're born, you may die. When you obtain good fortune, you may lose it. So none of these things are permanent. So we talk about impermanence. Why? Because of karma. Because these things come, rise, develop, and decay. So that's the wheel of samsara, or as they say in Europe, the wheel of fortune. Rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. So how to get out of that hamster wheel, that's what yoga is all about. Patanjali is getting into the DNA of this. So we're getting deep into this now. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot of food for thought in that one. Om Namo Narayana. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om. Shiva Ham. Jai Ma. Jai Mahakal. Till next time.